Hello. It is raining today, and my hair looks like shit, but it is raining, so I don't really care. Let me try this. Been doing okay today. The depression symptoms. I do not have depression per se, but I was on an antidepressant and stopped that a couple weeks ago, and it'll be I was on it for a little over half a year, and it takes a good bit of time and it was needed, so it takes a good bit of time for those kind of things to balance out and stuff. But I am, all my neurological symptoms and stuff are fine. Not having any kind of weird rebound. Electrical issues or anything. I went through the period of time where those kind of things still flare up, and I didn't have anything. Like, I noticed a tiny bit a couple times, like a little bit of stuff like emotions and whatnot, but all of that is still going pretty good. I'm still a little startled from it, so my vision's a little off. But I was thinking about the therapy that I went through, and I had some really specific, like, phobias that I worked through in my early 20s, or through my 20s, and it was not fun. They were not fun to have, and they started happening as I started, like, through my teenage years and afterwards, when I started getting more social and, becoming an adult, and hanging out with people outside of, like, people I met through school or dance or family and stuff, like, coming into contact with people, like, that I'd worked with, or, like, my family, like, just random people and stuff. I had a little bit of problem with, like, I didn't want to hang around or be friends with people that lived out in Anderson. It was purely an age group thing. Like, when I was in my early 20s, I did not want to hang out with anybody that was my age that lived out in Anderson, because they were on drugs. And it, it had nothing to do with anything other than, like, how incredibly, I boiled it down to, I'm like, man, people are killing themselves, and it really, like, there's one thing of not liking something, but, like, when you have a phobia, it was pretty bad. It was and then I had some people that I looked up to and they gave preference at times, like, yeah, or didn't feel like the same negative towards it, and it really lowered my what is the right word, my respect towards them. And I still feel that way about those people, not the people who were doing drugs, but the people who um, didn't have a problem with it and didn't understand my, issue with being around people who were on drugs and stuff. Um, Alton Anderson. Because still don't know anybody in Greenville that stays in Greenville very long that does hard drugs. So that is a thing. But I was just thinking, like, how can I put into words like the severity and the depth of like that phobia? And there really isn't anything I can say. I just think that's absolutely horrid. And I mean, it is, but everybody's like, my mind works a little different with certain stuff. And because of the effort, like, is simply put, when you have spent as much as much time as I have from a very early age, working as hard as I always have, and people who, like, try to come in the way of, who don't understand that, don't have, any respect towards children and like the growing process and stuff like that. And I am a lot more chill and calm and at this age, because I have to be, because of all the health stuff I've had. It has made me have to work at a slower pace on purpose. But I whether I know children or not, I still will, like, it's sacred. Like, that's not something that you come in between. And so it don't matter your age. It doesn't matter at what point in time in life, because I felt the same way as a teenager that I do as an adult. And that is, if you have to, obviously, those kind of things are private matters. Healthcare and stuff, and people, I don't hang out with cutters, that's pretty much what it is. Like, I think that people who are cutting and doing, obviously, what I mean by that is people who are, using really, what is the right word? Third world country help, in a time that, you can just walk into the fucking hospital and get help. And they're using, don't, or out completely outside of all that. Like, I think that's terrible. It makes me really sad, and that's all I can say about it now. But it was something I could have wrote a paper on. Well, I can write a paper on it now. When I was younger, I couldn't talk about it. I was so fucking traumatized about it because I understood the situation so very clearly. So I was just thinking about how very much trauma therapy I went through. When I was younger, and it was a lot. Not only have I worked really, really hard, like, socially and cognitively, like, through my teenage years and stuff and into my 20s, but also I had to work just as hard to go back and, take care of my mind and my thought process and stuff, because I didn't have any kind of support on that end. I had to do it all by gut. I don't know and have never met anybody who has been through as much trauma therapy and therapy in general as I have. I definitely have never met anybody who has as much trauma as I do. Like, I still haven't. And then it says, like, people can go through all kind of different things, and it's all, can be like pretty terrible and whatnot. So it's not a matter of like how much stuff traumatized me. It's like, when you look at the reality of a situation, and like, I told a doctor, not last summer, but the summer before, I went over to a clinic and, was getting my medication through them for, a couple months, because someone suggested them and I wanted to see what the place was like, and they were like, we want you to go to the Greenville Mental Health Clinic because you're on this medication. I was like, that's a cognitive medication. That's not a mental health medication. They didn't know the difference between cognition and it's a cult. Like, that's what clinics are. Because if you have any kind of like real problem, you have, a specialist doctor for it. And I had my appointment for my specialist doctor, but I hadn't seen him yet. And so But they were like, but I also didn't go in there and be like, oh, I have this problem, can you help me with it? Then they would have sent me over to, you know, the specialist. But actually, they just send you to the emergency room because I had a situation with my back, and they're like, just go to the emergency room. They met me in the parking lot to tell me that. It's the same people, so that's crazy. But yeah, I forgot what I was gonna say because my cognition is a little off right now, but I am so glad to be on the other side of all that. And it's really hard to like comprehend it in a way because it was so very so very intense. I am really spaced out at the moment. But I am really glad to be alive and be alive every day. And, you know, to not have those like guns pointed at me all the time. Yeah, I may be completely disconnected from all that trauma and those like phobias and stuff because I mean I really had to sever them, but I remember it. Like I remember how disabling it was. And that's really crazy. You know, I will never I never have once thought that you know, oh, at some point I'm not going to have to deal with that kind of stuff anymore because that's not how life works. And that's not also not how I work because I am a very social person. So, but education definitely helped. I had to, you know, do some like physical treatments, like medical treatments, in order to get through those phobias. Like, it was not something that I could just talk my way out of. It was that severe. Um, most of all that stems from having a sister who is mentally and physically disabled. So, I really do not take lightly to people who don't care for themselves and don't have any respect for themselves. And I'm going to leave it at that. It is raining, and it is Saturday. And I can't wait till my hair grows a little longer because it's hard for it to stay in a bun. Anyways, I hope everybody has a good rest of their day.